Good morning and welcome to the Real Logic Show. I'm your host Charlie, and here we deep dive into all things movies, from the biggest of blockbusters to the hidden gems, figuring out what works, what doesn't, and why. So grab your coffee and let's talk movies. In honor of a spooky month, today's video we're going to be deep diving into the Halloween franchise, one of the most iconic horror franchises ever. But not every movie is a masterpiece. Today, I'm ranking every single Halloween movie from worst to best. And yes, some fan favorites are going to shock you. So stick around and see which ones take the crown. So here's how I plan to do this. I plan to go ahead and explain the timelines as well as rank them in the best ways to watch the films. Then after that, I plan to get into the individual films and put those on a separate tier ranking scale as well. And I will explain along the way why each movie deserves its spot. I have crafted 7 optional timelines that you could use to watch the Halloween franchise here. And coming up in 7th place, I have the Resurrection timeline. So this timeline consists of the original film following Laurie Strode into Halloween 2, which took place a couple years, or came out a couple years after, but it takes place the same night, Halloween night, in the hospital, which then brings us into Halloween H2O, which is 20 years later, which has to deal with Laurie Strode faking her death and starting up a new life. And that is until Michael comes back 20 years later. And it ends with Halloween Resurrection, which totally destroys the significance of Laurie Strode and her arc throughout these movies. So that is why this timeline is in last place. And don't even really get me started on like the reality show aspect of it. It wasn't a really good movie. And for that reason alone, this timeline has to go on the bottom. In 6th place, we have the Rob Zombie timeline. Now, most people will agree that this timeline is towards the bottom, if not the lowest. But one thing people may find to be a hot take is how highly I do rank the first Rob Zombie Halloween reboot. I am a huge fan of that movie, but the problem with this timeline, mind it just being 2 movies, is that I don't really think it does the character of Michael Myers a great significance. And that really falls short in Halloween 2. I didn't really like the creative angle that Rob Zombie seemed to take with this movie. The first one, my biggest problem was the actual script writing was just awful, but I didn't really mind the directing style. Whereas in Halloween 2, I don't think either really hit. And that's why this timeline has to go in number 6 for me. In 5th place, we have what I like to call the Haddonfield timeline. Most people formally know this as the Blumhouse timeline, and it consists of the original Halloween, the 28 sequel, followed by Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. Now, I have this timeline relatively lower than I feel like most people do, and I think the biggest reason for that is Halloween Ends. I don't think it was a good conclusion to the Halloween saga. There are a lot of differences that I wish could have happened. And to be honest with you, Michael Myers was kind of like a cameo in that movie. I had my issues with Halloween Kills as well, which I do plan to get into once we get into the individual film tier rankings. But I just feel like there are many timelines to watch throughout this franchise that are more impactful and that you'll have a better watch experiencing. Here's where I believe that the timelines start to get a little less discombobulated and start to actually be very decent watches if you want to have a binge session for the Halloween franchises. So up next, I have in 4th place what I like to call the H40 timeline. Now, this only consists of the original Halloween and the 2018 sequel, which takes place 40 years later. I think this is much better than the entire Haddonfield timeline of the Blumhouse sequels, just because you can end the 2018 film and be left at a good conclusion to the film where it doesn't have to go on longer. You kind of get a resolution in some way, and I almost wish that they did do that, to be honest with you, because I think there were some really good kills in Halloween Kills, hence the name. But it just really fell short with that whole trilogy that Blumhouse made, in my opinion. So that's why I think if you were to watch the original and then the 2018 movie, you could end pretty satisfied seeing Michael coming home and then what happens 40 years later. And you get a resolution from Laurie that, although I don't think is necessarily better than her arc in H2O, you get a different aspect of how she deals with trauma and the PTSD of the whole thing. And I'll go into Halloween Kills once we get into that individual film. I have a lot of issues with that film the more that I think about it. So in fourth place, I'm staying with the H40 timeline. We have made it to the top 3 timelines to watch a Halloween franchise. So coming up in third place, we have what is formerly known as the Curse of Thorn timeline. This consists of the original Halloween, followed by the sequel, Halloween 2, which then takes place, which leads us into really like a Donald Pleasance trilogy, which consists of Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween 6. This has been a fan favorite just because these were the main Halloween movies for the longest time before we got into all of these sequels. Where this falls short is at the end of Halloween 5 into Halloween 6, where they really get into the mysticism and the myth behind why Michael Myers is evil and almost like this demonic Celtic ritual that takes place. And I kind of like that aspect of it and understanding like why Michael Myers is not human to some degree, but I think it kind of falls short in how they explain it, because there were a lot of issues with Halloween 6 that we will get into once we go into those individual films. And for that reason, the Curse of Thorn timeline, as much as I do love it and it's a guilty pleasure of mine, can't go past number 3. So on to the next 2. In second place is a very simple timeline to follow, and it's very simple, and that's kind of what makes this timeline so great. We have the Halloween night timeline, and this takes place simply on one singular Halloween night. You have the original Halloween and all the events of that, followed by Laurie Strode and how she deals with the aftermath in the hospital and Michael coming to the hospital. And I think that the simplicity of this timeline is what makes it so special. I really like Halloween 2, but to compare it to the original, obviously, you can still get a similar vibe. You could feel that original aspect to it, but it is a different movie. The hospital is it doesn't feel very lived in, is the best way I could describe it. So that's why I love this timeline, but there is still one above this that I think is the best way to watch the Halloween franchise, especially for the people that don't want to sit down and watch 12, 13 movies. Because I would be the first one to tell you, if you want to watch them all. I love this franchise. It's my favorite horror franchise out there. But for the people that don't have all that time, this is a great timeline to watch and see if you enjoy what Michael Myers is all about. And what I believe to be the best Halloween timeline to watch is the H2O timeline. And a lot of people aren't going to agree with that opinion because Halloween H2O doesn't get as much love as it deserves. There are some issues with it. It really is like a Scream spin-off, seems to be what a lot of people say about this film. Just due to the time, the late 90s, how impactful Scream was to the slasher movie industry. But I really like a lot of the kills in that movie, and I think Laurie Strode's character arc is so much better than how it was done in that 2018 film. This is a great trilogy of films, Halloween, Halloween 2, and then Halloween H2O. We are ignoring Halloween Resurrection because it destroys everything within Laurie Strode's character arc. You can end Halloween H2O and get a satisfying conclusion to not just Michael Myers, but to Laurie Strode's story as well. And that is why I believe this is to be the number 1 Halloween timeline to watch. So now we are heading into our individual film tier list ranking of all of these 12 movies. So we're going to start off at the bottom in 12th place, and we have our first F tier movie, which is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. The plot of this film is very messy. You have a great main character in Halloween 4, and then you decide to kill her off in the beginning of this movie, and then bring us a very annoying character that just doesn't stick. The character development in this film was bad. The plot pacing was bad. I will say there were some good kills, and the chase scene towards the end of the movie was quite suspenseful, but all in all, this movie did not work. You get to the end of the film, and you have the Man in Black, which, could have been executed a little bit better. You have this guy who has an infatuation with Michael Myers. Who's to know what that could have brought you? But it really didn't work in Halloween 6. Now, I understand that is a Halloween 6 issue. That isn't necessarily a Halloween 5 issue. But we can't fail to mention that this movie just doesn't hold up with the rest of the films. And the only other movie that really comes close to this would be Resurrection, which I will get into. But Resurrection was at least a little fun. When I seem to do my rewatches of the Halloween franchise, I always seem to dread going back and watching Halloween 5. And Jamie, the little girl in the show, which I really loved in Halloween 4. I loved how suspenseful, and I'm not a parent yet, but I can totally understand just how anxious and intense it is when a child is in danger. And I think that was done so well in Halloween 4. And in Halloween 5, which I understand, she has PTSD and she's going through like mental institutions because all the trauma that she's dealing with. But this entire movie, she's mute and doesn't talk throughout the whole film. And I just think that there was some kind of wasted potential there. Coming up in 11th place, still in our F tier rankings, is Halloween Resurrection. Now this one and Halloween 5, I seem to go back and forth with which is my least favorite. But I put this one in 11th place because I do kind of appreciate some of the jump scare moments in the movie, and some of it's kind of fun, I won't lie to you, but the plot it almost seems like this is a parody making fun of a Halloween Michael Myers film, and it just didn't really work for me. Michael Myers was kind of underutilized throughout the film. You have Busta Rhymes doing kung fu. This movie just didn't work, and one of the worst decisions they made, especially after Halloween H2O, you have this great finishing arc of Laurie Strode. And of course, the studio just wanted to make more money, so they got to figure out a way to bring Michael Myers back. What do you know, at the end of H2O, she doesn't kill Michael. She kills some guy that Michael put the mask on him and took out his vocal cords. So Michael got away. And the movie starts off with her, after being a badass in Halloween H2O, to then being in a mental institution after everything she's gone with, to where Michael ends up coming get her, and Michael kills her. And it was such a horrible death in the way that they treated Jamie Lee Curtis, and I don't know how she signed off to even do this movie. I'm not sure there was contractual agreements in place, but this is a big miss. It did not work for me, and I really don't have much more to say about this movie. Like I said, there were some fun moments, but all in all, this movie's not it. Well, we've made it into the top 10 films, and that doesn't really say much, but in 10th place, we still have an F-tier movie. I will say this is my last F-tier movie, and as the years have gone on, the cult appreciation for this film has gone up quite tremendously. I'm not part of that fan club, but I have next Halloween Ends. This is the conclusion to the Blumhouse trilogy of films. I think this movie had potential. Its issue is that this was a franchise-ending film. You cannot finish off your trilogy of movies and Michael not being the main character. You follow Corey, who, and I kind of like the aspect of like how evil lurks within the town and what it could do to your soul. I kind of appreciated that. If they were to have incorporated it into the 2018 film and touched base on it throughout this trilogy to lead us somewhere, but you can't do it in the final movie. This entire advertising for this film was the last showdown between Laurie and Michael. And sure, we got it at the very end of the movie, but he was a cameo in his own film. And you get to that point of the film, and then you think, where's Corey, the dude we've been following this entire story? This movie just did not work for me. I think if they were to combine some of the better aspects of Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, this could have been a solid entry into the franchise. But since they tried to take a different approach, which I can respect, I like when studios try to do something different. But sadly, this one did not work for me, and that's why it does have to go in the F category. In 9th place, we have our first D tier movie. A movie that didn't necessarily stick the landing, but it's not one of the it's not in the bottom 3 of the timeline. That's the best way I could describe it. We have Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie remake or sequel in 2009. I did not like much about this movie at all, besides the brutal killing that Michael does throughout this film. That's the one aspect I love about the Rob Zombie movies, is just how dark and gruesome they are. But they try to take this approach similar to how the end of Halloween 4 went, with Jamie taking on Michael's evil persona. But this didn't really stick to landing for me. This whole movie had this metaphor of the white horse and purity, and how at the end his sister, Laurie, ends up developing the same psychosis that Michael has. And it just didn't really work for me. I wanted this movie to be good. And this is the main reason why I don't think the Rob Zombie timeline itself is that good. If you want to watch a Halloween movie, you want this connection to fall time, the Halloween spirit, the energy of Haddonfield itself. And this movie missed the mark on most of those levels. Coming in 8th place, we have Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now, this is a pretty confusing movie, to be honest. You get this crazy cliffhanger at the end of episode 5 with the man in black getting Michael out of prison. Well, we end up finding out that there's this whole curse of Thorn that's going on, which explains Michael's mythical abilities and how he never seems to be able to die. So there were some interesting ideas in this film, but all the plot twists just didn't seem to really stick. And that kind of explains why there was a theatrical release and then like a director's producer's cut of the film. And that one tried to focus more so on the plot and everything. I will still say it's quite a sticky film. It just really doesn't stick. I actually prefer the theatrical release. But one positive I will say about this film is Michael Myers is scary in this movie. I think a very important thing to these films is your setting, your atmosphere. This movie has a very dark, really good atmosphere to this movie, and I give it credit for that. You have Paul Rudd in this film. Oh, when he's younger, a guy that doesn't age. But all in all, this movie, just meh. It sticks in the D tier for me. I wanted it to be a little bit better, but that's pretty much all I have to say about Halloween 6. Coming in at number 7, we have Halloween Kills. This was the second movie that Blumhouse made, and I have this right smack dab in the middle in C tier. I think from this movie on is when I actually start to really appreciate all these films and everything that they come with. Of course, they all have their issues, especially Halloween Kills. I saw this one in theaters, and the amount of times I heard "Evil dies tonight," the writing is so bad in this movie. As I mentioned earlier, the kills are quite creative. Michael kills with many different weapons, and a lot of people didn't like that because he didn't just have his typical dagger, his knife. But I really liked the way they dealt with that. And we've seen Michael use different weapons, so this isn't anything new to that degree. But you have this entire town chanting "Evil dies tonight," but then it totally ignores the fact that in the previous film, you have Laurie Strode's daughter who is literally cutting her off because her mom is crazy, but then the entire town is pretty much on the same side of the mom of like Michael Myers, Evil dies tonight. So it's like, where was all this energy in the 2018 film? This one just didn't really stick for me. Like I said, if you were to combine most of the aspects of this film with Halloween Ends, and you were to actually make a solid conclusion, I think this would be much higher on my list. But for that, this one has to go at number 7. Next up, we are moving into the B tier of films. These are Halloween entries that I think are very solid and don't really degrade what came before it. And in 6th place, we have Halloween 2, 1982. This is a perfect example of how a sequel can happen without destroying what came before it. This takes place on the same Halloween night as the original, with Laurie Strode in the hospital and how she's dealing with what just happened to her, and she doesn't catch a break because Michael is on his way to the hospital. Why this movie sticks in B tier for me is due to the middle of this film. It's very empty. There's a lot of pacing issues throughout this movie that I think could have been a little bit tighter. One aspect that I thought was really cool is that this film was actually filmed in an abandoned hospital. So it kind of adds to that creepy vibe and atmosphere of this movie. Michael Myers seems to walk like a zombie or like a robot throughout this film, which I didn't necessarily love. The tension's good, the stalking's good, but for most of those reasons, this one has to stick in the B tier. Coming up in the top 5, we have Halloween 2018. I think this is a fairly good movie. It brings back Laurie Strode. Michael Myers feels terrifying again. Good horror, good pacing, and it really respects the original legacy of the Halloween franchise. What this movie did right is they took a new approach. They ignored all the sequels and reboots that came before it, and they said, let's pick up off of the original film. And I really like that. I had some issues throughout this film, but nothing that I could really rant about. I think this is a good, solid entry into the Halloween franchise. It's just that there are movies that I believe are better than it, and that's about all I have to say about that one. The kills are good. Michael Myers' mask is great. The actor that plays him, although not necessarily bad, I just don't think he was as standout as some of the other actors that played the role. And Laurie Strode, I really like the way that they portrayed her, how she dealt with the trauma and everything in Halloween H2O. I like that she still went on with her life, whereas in the 2018 film, she really is kind of schizophrenic, which many will argue, like, it's very realistic how someone could turn this way after all that time. And that is true. I just didn't necessarily love the approach of it. That it was cool how she had her whole entire house booby-trapped and rigged for Michael to come back. And this movie worked for me for the most part. Like I said, it just has to stick in the top of the B-tier films. Starting off our A tier, we have in 4th place, ironic enough, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This is a great movie. This mainly follows Donald Pleasance's Dr. Loomis story and introduces Laurie's daughter, Jamie Strode. And it's quite terrifying seeing Michael Myers coming after this little girl. I think there's not much bad to say about this film. The worst thing is the mask. And many people say, oh, Michael got it in a store, that's why it looks the way it does. I don't care. This is a big budget movie with a big studio, mind you. There's no reason the mask should have looked this bad in this film. It's not perfect, but it's a decent slasher, and I think coming back after Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and many people wanting Michael Myers back, people got exactly what they wanted. They cut ties with Jamie Lee Curtis at the time, but they wanted to keep the storyline going, and for what we got, I think it really works. We have made it to the top 3 films. Coming in 3rd place, still in A tier, we have Halloween H2O. This is a fun, nostalgic film, taking place 20 years after the original and after the Curse of Thorn saga of films. They decided to bring back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. And I'm sure at the time, the audience went absolutely nuts. This is a fun idea, and I will say it plays it kind of safe. It doesn't take too much risk. And it really follows the Scream template of slasher films, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of loses sense of its Halloween touch. We take place outside of Haddonfield, now at a high school academy, and Jamie Lee Curtis, is a dean. She's something to do with the faculty at this academy that her son attends. It's a really good film. And I understand why people have some issues with it, but I think the way that they handle Laurie's arc is just so well, and she's a badass in this film. I would argue that in the first Halloween film, and even the second one, Sydney from Scream is a much better final girl than, and that's no disrespect to Jamie Lee Curtis. It's just, She didn't bring that badass aura that she does in H2O, which she is a badass in this film. And spoiler alert, she actually ends up killing Michael Myers at the end, which in Resurrection we find out wasn't actually Michael. But if they were to end this saga of films with H2O, this movie would be so much more recognized as one of the best. And it is for me. We have made it to my number 2 film. and this is where I'm going to have to explain myself. We've made it to the S tier of films. Coming in at second, I have the reboot of Halloween 2007 by Rob Zombie. Many people despise this film because it humanizes Michael to where he's just this man, you know. He had this traumatic childhood, this upbringing, and how that shapes the evil within him in order to make him break, you know, turn into this monster. I really like the psychological aspect of that. I think it's very well done. My issue is the script, the writing. It's so cringy, and that's just Rob Zombie for you. The first third of this film is Michael before he made his first killing. And I think it does drag a little too long, but when you do get to that point on Halloween night as a little child, it hits you very hard. You get to the middle of this film, and it's basically Michael within the mental institution and how he has a relationship with his mom. Dr. Loomis is introduced throughout the film. The middle of this film lacked a lot of potential, as more than I think the beginning of the movie did. And there was just something missing from there. And then you get to the final third act of the film, which is basically a remake of the original Halloween, just much faster done. I love how dark and brutal the killings are in this film. And this was really early 2000s coded. You can tell that, you know, this isn't an 80s movie. They decided to take a risk, and I think it worked. Like I said, the writing may not necessarily be the best. The dialogue may not always work. But if you want a movie to just make you grip to your core, this is a very dark film to watch. And it's my second favorite out of all of them. So I'd love to know what you guys think about Rob Zombie's film. And I just wish people were a little lighter on it at the end of the day, because it is a good movie. I could rant about this film specifically for so long. It's just, I think people need to give it another chance. Coming in at number 1, 1978 Halloween. It just doesn't get any better than this. It's so simple. Michael stalking the silent killer, and you can't fail to mention John Carpenter's score throughout this movie. When Laurie Strode is running down the street trying to get into the house, she's screaming for Tommy to let her in, and you just see Michael walking down the street, not running, walking down the street, and you hear that dun 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 dun. It is so thrilling to the core. I just absolutely love this film. And every other movie that came after this owes its existence to this masterpiece. This is pure horror genius. It's an iconic film, and it doesn't get much better than this. And this movie really shaped how slasher films came after this. And there you have it. There is my Halloween timelines ranked and all of the films ranked. So for those of you that haven't seen the franchise, hopefully I could give you some input and options of where to start and what to look out for. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments, so let me know your thoughts on these rankings. And I'm open to discussion. And if any other movie suggestions or breakdowns you guys want to hear, let me know your thoughts. I hope everyone has a safe and good Halloween. And until next time, hit the like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.